What's up, Brawlers? Deathblow here, back again with another patch notes review video. I want to thank everybody that has been subscribing to the channel, joining the Discord. Both things are continuing to grow. I really appreciate it. The game is in a bit of a lull at the moment as far as the new player base coming in and just basically the Steam charts numbers. So it's great to see any growth continue to occur on the channel here. Really appreciate everybody's support. Sorry this video is a day late. As you're getting to know me, I'm sure you're realizing that I'm very involved in my football team, my NFL football team, the Buffalo Bills. They were on Monday Night Football last night, and there was a pretty late patch in the evening. So I just wasn't able to get this video recorded in time. So sorry for no video yesterday. That will be an incredibly rare occurrence on this channel. It really maybe, once, twice a year is kind of my thinking on how often I'll miss. So I hated to do it, but there's no way I would have been able to focus and record everything and get it edited down. So my apologies. I hope you'll accept this video a day late. But this is a massive patch, and I'm sure I've said this before, but it's the biggest one I can remember in the history of the game. We've got new everything. We've got new characters, new heroes, new treasures, so some old spells returning. I don't know if there's any brand new spells or not, but I guess we'll refresh my memory here pretty soon. But let's start things off and take a look at the new hero, Headless Horseman. You start with 3 kidnaps in your opening hand. This is a pretty interesting effect. I think getting 3 cards in your hand tells me that you're going to want to spend at least 1, maybe 2 of these fairly early in the game, at least around when you're filling up your board. But honestly, I think you'll want to really preemptively use them and use them to fill up your board and kind of gain an early advantage. I think that's going to be really important to this hero is the early game, what you're able to do with it. Are you able to give yourself a head start? You might want to be saving them for the mid to late game if there's a skip in your lobby, but there's really nothing to guarantee that you're going to hit those higher level characters early on or first and kill them first to be able to steal them from the opponent. So it might just be overthinking things and being too cute to try and force them to get value later on in the game. Another interesting use for the hero, I think, is if you have a start with Wizards familiar, I think these kidnaps will do a really good job of smoothing out your spells, making sure that you're casting them every turn. A little bit less important, but Cinderella is another one where if you've got one of those and you really want to buy everything on the board, those 4 and 5 mana turns, sometimes it's really difficult to get a spell in there with the minion purchases that you're trying to make or character purchases. So I think these kind of free kidnaps that come in your hand are going to really kind of help smooth out those draws and make those a little more potent in the early game. But overall, this is probably a middle of the pack hero. I've said that before and been wrong in both directions, so we'll see how things actually shake out for the Headless Horseman. It's definitely a cool, interesting effect, which is enough for me, at least in the time being, and we'll have to give it some time and see what the meta looks like. Maybe late game, there are some really good options of characters you're trying to steal, but I tend to think that you'll probably want to use those kidnaps early and then maybe try to It Was All a Dream away from the Headless Horseman by mid to late game. Moving on, we've got a new character here. This is the Ogre Princess. They say it fills the 3-cost slay hole that adventurer left, and that's just a fun phrase, so I wanted to make sure I worked that in. But yeah, it's a 3/1 level 3 character with slay, add a random character to your hand. Now, the upgraded version of this adds a character of your level to your hand. So if you've got this in the late game, as the developer comment here says, you can just farm level 6 characters as much as you want, or at least as much as you're able to kill other characters with this relatively small bodied 3/1. I think it's really interesting that this is another princess, also that it's a monster. I really like combining new combinations of synergies. So good princess monster is an awesome combination that I like to see, and I'm very curious how that might impact some of those other synergies. You've got characters like Beauty that might get significantly better by this 3-drop monster being added into things, and The effect boosts the card as well, so I think that's a very notable interaction. And this also just seems to be something that if you hit it kind of early, it feels like a bit of a no-brainer buy, right? If your board's not full yet, this has a good chance to hit, and this has a good chance to trigger its sleigh, then it's going to help you fill out your board. And I think it's a pretty notable inclusion, and I don't think there's much risk of it being absolutely broken like Baby Bugbear was or anything like that. So a pretty solid, if not super, super exciting addition to the game here in Ogre Princess. Mix-a-Wizzle's back. That's the next one we've got here. I really enjoy that this is a targeted spell. I think that's highly relevant to some heroes like Potion Master. It's also relevant to cards like Sleeping Princess. So I'm really interested in how this plays out. I think it's also got a pretty decent effect. If you've got just kind of a bum 2-drop in your hand, you get to turn that into possibly your best character on the board. It's also nice to get to see what that character is and position accordingly before the brawl actually begins. Before, Mix-a-Wizzle used to just upgrade your whole team and just kind of drop them where they lie, and you didn't have any control over it, and that could be a little frustrating. But this is, I think, a much more utilitarian card now, and potentially valuable, and much more strategic as well. So I really like the look of this card as it returns into the mix, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. Next up, we've got a new treasure, Noble Steed. As they are saying here, they don't have the final art yet, so we'll see this change in the future, but we are getting the card for now in its current form. Your questing characters have +1/+1 and reward treasures 1 level higher. So Cinderella, Brave Princess, Nutcracker, Hercules, and Lancelot, I think, are all of them. And I think this is a really interesting treasure, one you might even consider taking late game if you get a kind of an awkward level 2 triple late in the game. It can allow your Hercules to find you that tier 7 treasure. And I think really any combination of cards or any combo that allows you a chance to look at level 7s is really, really important, as those can be absolutely game defining and lobby winning. So this is a very cool, interesting treasure. And again, it takes cards that maybe aren't super playable like Brave Princess and just gives them a little bit more support and a little bit more ability to get some good use out of them. So it had already been buffed just in terms of its stats recently, and now it's getting some additional support as well. And really some of the, especially the mid-game questing minions are characters, I should say, are just some of the worst in the game. So I think this is a really interesting and fun way to affect those cards without changing them. So I really like this edition. Next up, we've got another new treasure, the 6 of Shields. This is a 4-drop treasure. Give your characters +3 health. So yeah, it's, I mean, pretty straightforward. It's not a super exciting ability here, but it is a treasure spot that really, really needed an influx of some additional viable picks. Notably, this is one that if you're on 1 HP, you know, it's worth grabbing just because it has a raw stats effect on your board. It helps you win combat immediately as soon as you get it, and I think that's a little bit rare for the 4-drop spot on treasures, and I think that makes this a really good get here. So sorry, I'm assuming you all heard that sound. I'm closing some things on my end here, but yeah, that was my sound effect. Sorry about that. But yeah, 6 of Shields, a nice solid addition. Very almost boring, and I don't mean that as a negative to the card. I think it's kind of exactly what the 4-drop treasures needed. Another cool 4-drop treasure that we're getting. I love that we're getting multiple of them. It really was a bad spot for treasures, in my opinion. Moonsong Horn. Your characters have +1/+1. Your spells cost 1 less. So a bit of a kind of split down the middle treasure here. It's not sure if it wants to be pumping your board or helping you with a spell-based strategy. Instead, it's just going to do both. And I think that's a really interesting design choice here. a little bit useful to everybody. I think even if you're in a token strategy, just the ability to get +1/+1 can be better than a lot of other possible options. So I'm curious to see how Moonsong Horn plays out. It's not likely to be a massive game impacting treasure, but again, it kind of impacts what work, how it'll, which spells work with Working Rod. I'm blanking on names of cards now. My apologies. But so yeah, lowering the cost helps with some other synergies as well. So this could get interesting. I haven't given too much thought into what 3-cost spells are out there that would then get doubled and how that'll affect the balance of these cards. But I'm excited to get the opportunity to try this out and see what it does on the fly. So looking very much forward to trying out Moonsong Horn a little bit. Next up, we've got some bigger treasures. The Arc is a 6-drop treasure. Your starting characters have +12/+12 if you have a character of each level. So notably, if you're summoning additional characters, they're not going to be getting that bonus. So this doesn't work great with token strategies, but this is a massive effect. +12/+12 is huge. Things like Mimic exist. This could be +24/+24. So it might really be worth paying a little bit closer attention to what you're holding on in your hand as you sell things for economy reasons later into the game. So you need 5 different, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 5 of your 7 spots have to be devoted to being of a specific level. And I think that is certainly a significant cost, right? Those later tier characters are much more powerful than the early ones, but the +12/+12 is quite a carrot to dangle that I really think might make it worth it to try and pursue this strategy. Again, especially with Mimic, that is just a massive value. And say your 6-drop is like a Doom Breath, that it's going to wear that +12/+12 very, very well, and you're going to get a lot of good value out of it. So an interesting one. Yeah, I think you're going to see people trying to build around this and try to make this work. But again, I don't know of any one specific comp yet that will make better use of it than others. We'll have to wait and see. And really give some thought to what all the synergies like Dwarfs and Royals and Tree Folk, Tree Ants, what all those kind of have at each tier and what that curve looks like. And I think there might be 1 or 2 that really make very, very good use of the Arc. Next up, we've got Pandora's Box. Of all the new things they're adding into this game, boy, do I like this one the least. Imagine opening the box and getting the next new treasure on the list. I had to wait a long time in order to get this tier 6 treasure, and now I've got to wait a long time in the late game in order to get my random level 7 treasure. I don't think this is going to be worth it very often. I'm surprised this is going in at 6. Maybe after 1 brawl would be significantly better, but it's just it's very weird to me. And then to not control it too, right? I think that's very brutal to the card. There's other ones, after what is it, the treasure chest, you're getting to choose which treasure you get, and I don't know why we can't get that choice here. I think that would certainly make it much closer to playable and much closer to even desirable. But as it stands right now, I don't see Pandora's Box being a great choice here. Now, Mimic, again, like you have to think about Mimic with every single treasure that you get. Now you're getting 2 random level 7 treasures. That's significantly more interesting to me. But again, probably not going to be a direction that I'm looking to go. But they said, imagine getting the next new treasure on the list. So let's keep that in mind as we look to the next one. Black Prism. Okay, there's no interactions there. We can move on. So this is a level 7 treasure. When you cast a spell directly on one of your characters, cast it on all of them. Really, really cool effect. I like it. I think it fits in maybe with tier 6s a little better, to be honest. I'm not sure this is super, super powerful because, again, this is the self-targeted, self-buffing spells. Now, if you are Potion Master, this is nuts because your whole team will then be targeted. So your whole team will get the additional +2/+2. I think there are some very interesting use cases for this Black Prism. If you were to be able to farm it out very early, you'd have to be careful not to the end one of your minions, because then you'd lose your entire board. Granted, you would finish your level to level 6 very quickly, gain a lot of life, but it's just not going to be worth it. So yeah, this is probably not a game-breaking addition, but I think there, again, like I said, there's some niche uses, there's some instances where this could be really, really good, and I'm curious to see of all the cards that they've come out with that I don't think are going to be, you know, great or super strong. This is the one I'm least confident in, because like I said, there's just got to be some instance out there, some path or line of play that you can make that I'm just not seeing at the moment, and who knows how good that line of play is. So be interesting to see. Next up, we're getting into the changes here. So these are existing cards, and they're getting a bit of a nerf or a buff, depending. In this case, it's a buff. Spear of Achilles. When one of your characters attacks, give it +7/+7 this brawl instead of +5/+5, which is what it was before. It's still a tier 6 treasure. This one was a treasure that, again, like I was just talking about, it had niche uses. You know, Court Wizard made very, very good use out of it. There was some times you could, you know, use it to help pump your Echo Wood a little bit or something like that. But it overall was not very strong or as impactful as you want a level 6 treasure to be. And giving it an additional +2/+2 on its buff effect, I think will help that. But I'm not sure it really changes much overall. But again, just kind of making things a little more generically good when the other options don't fit, right? I think that's a reasonable place for a treasure to be. And if you can make it impact the board a little more, I think that's a good thing for this one. It was definitely a little on the weak side, but we'll see how it does at +7/+7. I wouldn't be surprised if we're buffing this again in a patch or two, but we'll see. Next up, this is the one I wanted to see, but not the way I wanted to see it done. We're just moving more level 6 treasures to level 7. So whatever your favorite level 7 treasure is, you're probably not going to see it when you get to look at a level 7 treasure, and that's okay, but not great. Listen, I don't want it to be likely that you're going to get the level 7 that you want, right? It doesn't have to be like mathematically in your favor, but I think it'd be nice if it felt like there was a reasonable opportunity to be able to get what you're looking for, and to feel like it was worth trying to look at that, because it takes resources, right? It takes some work to look at level 7 treasures. And if you're really looking for a round table, or if you're really looking for this magic sword, it's not going to feel, I don't think, like you're able to reliably find it, or even have much of an opportunity to find it. And maybe you're better off to just grab a level 6 instead, and maybe Singing Swords, you know. So I don't know. It's not a problem. I like that they nerfed Good Boy Magic Sword combo. And for now, that's enough for me. But it's just, I've been saying this for a little while now. It feels like a pattern where they're just like, oh, here's a really good level 6 treasure. And instead of maybe adjusting the numbers that are on it and what the actual effect is, let's just move it to 7. Like, let's just shove it in there. And I don't know. It's been a concern for me for a little bit, and it just keeps happening. So obviously that concern's not going away. But for the time being, let's just rejoice. The end game's going to open up a little bit without Good Boy Magic Sword in every single lobby. And that's, like I said, that's good enough for me at the moment. Next up, a hero change, Pied Piper. Now your shop sells an extra animal with +1/+1. So one character choice in the shop gets +1/+1. It's still always an animal. It's just not changing anything for me. I was initially pretty high on Pied Piper when I started playing the game. I had some high rolls with it. It felt like it really smoothed out my ability to hit triples and just made me pretty consistent. And then I continued to play with the hero, and it just didn't work out. And I don't think this does anything to fix its problems. A slightly increased stat boost. Listen, it's better. There's no doubt about it. And maybe it's a better oh well, like I don't like my options, I'll just take this one, kind of a selection. But it's nothing. You're not going to pick it over other good options that are in your shop. I don't know if their goal was to put it in that situation where it was at the higher end of the tier list, but yeah, they didn't do that in my opinion. Next up is a character change. They took a really kind of bad, underwhelming card in my opinion. Wombats in Disguise. It was best as a tempo card, and now it's completely useless. I really dislike it. Instead of summoning a random level 6 character, you summon a random character and give it its attack and health. Throw it out. Never buy this. This isn't even one I'm going to test. This is one I refuse to play. Just on the surface, I'm not picking this up. There's no lower tier minion that's good as a 4/4, and if you end up giving me a 6 cost, like I've lost the ability to win rounds with it because it pulled a Jormungand. I was reasonably okay with losing rounds because I pulled an Ashwood with 0 power or something like that, and that's what they say would miss hard when it summoned a 0 attack character. It misses hard every time now. So I really just don't get it, and I will never buy this card. Not at a 5. I don't think I'd buy it at a 4, maybe at a 3. Not kidding either. Like I think they're that far off on this being playable. I also don't think every card needs to be playable, so I don't mind that there's bad cards. I have no love for Wombats in Disguise. If this is going to be one of the new eggs in the game, then fine. Like there can be a terrible 5-drop that you couldn't pay me to buy, that I'd rather pick up. Like I honestly think I'd rather have the 3/2 dragon, right? The level 2 guy. Like it's just. That might be slightly overboard, but yeah, Wombats just to me feels absolutely terrible. I'd definitely rather spend 2 gold for that than 5 gold for this. I'll say that much. Obviously, this one could very much so be better, but it's nowhere near worth the investment. Like this is a complete whiff, in my opinion. If their goal was to make this good, buffs will help ensure that character makes an impact. Nope. All right, moving on. We don't need to harp on that one. Shoulder Fairies used to be a tier 6 character. Now it is a tier 5 character. It did feel a bit weak for level 6, and I think this is going to be pretty good in tier 5. I've played a couple games on this patch last night. One of them was a Treants build with a big upgraded Shoulder Fairies. It was very strong. It was very crucial to me winning that lobby. I won it convincingly, and I really kept people out of their late game strategies. I ended the lobby so fast because I ramped into a Shoulder Fairies, and I had some good things to do with it. So I also ramped into her on level 4. So that was also pretty important, but it gave me like the good minion, you know what I mean? It all worked together. And I think that this won't be oppressive. It won't be phenomenal, but it will fit and it will be much more usable in its new tier home of a tier 5. So we've got a hero nerf to Ivella. I always called her the queen of the mid game. I just expected to lose after turn 4 and before I was level 6 whenever I went against an Ivella, and that's, I think, certainly going to change, but I also think it's probably still a pretty good hero. It no longer says when one of your animals dies, give evil characters +1/+1 this brawl. Now, your evil characters have +1 attack for each of your animals that died this brawl. So I think it's interesting how this works with spawners, right? You'll be getting that plus attack on anything that spawns afterwards. It doesn't have to be there and see the animal die in order to get the buff, which is really interesting. And it also just doesn't pump defense. So I think you're going to be less able to just snowball and run away with entire rounds. So this is very interesting. You're also going to be more vulnerable to mummies that are maybe not positioned in position 1, and you know, if you don't attack first, right? So yeah, this will be very interesting, but a lot of those backline minions kind of pump their own attack anyways with Queen of Hearts and Bearded Vulture. So yeah, I think Ivella is still going to be a very strong hero, but maybe a little less just permanently unbeatable throughout the entire mid game. Next up, we've got a Lordy rework, really a whole Dwarves rework. We've got Princess White here as well, but we'll start with Lordy. And now it says at the start of each brawl, for each Dwarf and Princess White that you have, give them all +2/+2. So in terms of Lordy, the only difference that we're seeing here is that Princess White counts as a Dwarf for the combat, right? Or for the, not the combat, but for the pump. So you no longer need to remove the Princess White from your Dwarves build, and I think that's an overall positive, especially considering the change to Princess White, which we'll be getting to in a second. But it felt bad to like scale this minion and work on this minion and then just need to pull it out for your Echo Wood in the late game, or for your Lordy in the late game. So yeah, overall this is I think an interesting change, and like I said, these dwarf changes are more about the basically the combination of these two, right? Lordy and then Princess White, which we'll get to right now. No longer pumps permanently when a dwarf dies. So now it pumps when you buy a dwarf, and it doesn't need to be purchased or be on your board when you actually make that purchase. It will remember all your past dwarf purchases, so you're no longer punished quite so badly by seeing this late. It will still be something you can buy and throw in. The quest remains the same, just buy 7 dwarves. This will, I think, scale way less oppressively in the mid game, and I got a dwarf game in earlier. It did very well, and Princess White was around the whole time. I kept it on the board throughout the duration of the game. Even after the Echo Woods and the Lordies showed up, it got pretty big, but again, it wasn't like 130 or anything like that. It was like 50-50, and then it was getting the Lordy buffs after that. So it brought it much more in line with what I think is fair, right? You could just see these really early Princess Whites, and maybe you would upgrade it on Gwen, and then you just kind of run away with a lobby because nobody could kill the princess. And so I think you're going to have less of those, and you're also keeping the synergy overall in a pretty decent spot. You're still able to win and have a good performance with dwarves. I really kind of like the change overall. I was worried this would be too much of a nerf to the Princess White, but after seeing it in action for that game I got to play, I really enjoyed how it felt, and everything felt still very good, very strong, and nothing felt unbeatable either. So it becomes about, should you be in dwarves, instead of like, oh, I saw this early, so I'm going to force it. I think you'll see more instances where people try dwarves and transition out, or maybe people transition into it a little bit later than they normally would, because it's not reliant on seeing an early Princess White. You can see it on level 4 and still make it work. So, all right, moving on, we've got Copycat. Is no longer a 4/4 that when it attacks triggers the last breath abilities of the characters behind it. It is a 2/12 with the same ability, so much more reliable to actually trigger things. To be honest, my concern is that it's a little too reliable, and maybe in the mid game, right? I think there's going to be, so no, because now I'm actually I haven't played this one yet, obviously, if you can't tell by my indecisiveness, but I'm trying to kind of think how this is going to work out, and really, I think it's going to be pretty reliable for a few turns after level 5 that you are going to get this to trigger in position 2. So if you're able to see the early mummy or double monster book, or mummy and book, or whatever you're able to get, a combination of the good last breathing 5 drops, this could come back in a pretty big way. But what's nice here is that it still has to attack in order to get the effect, and 12 toughness, while pretty big in the mid game, isn't going to have any chance to survive a combat if it gets attacked first after level 6 and in the late game. The stats will just be too massive on everything that's going to be attacking it. So It will, I think, keep it from dominating the late game like it did when it was just its own last breath to do the last breaths behind it. That was way too good. And I think we're making this better without making it broken. So I really like the direction the Copycat is going right now. And I'm excited to try and make this work. I'm not sure what last breaths I want to use with it yet. Monster Book, I think, is obviously an easy choice. But I've got to wonder if there's others. Is there a Grimsoul strategy? I don't know. We've really got to look into this, I think, a bit more. But the added reliability in the mid game of having this 12 toughness is going to make a big deal on Copycat builds. So something to keep an eye on. Next up, we've got Fallen Angel. This now works the way you probably always thought it did. Your characters have +2 attack if you start with 3 evil characters, and +2 health if you start with 3 good characters. I think I mentioned this in a video recently. If you had 2 starting evil minions and a black cat, as soon as your black cat died, all your stuff would get +2/+2 because it saw the 3rd character, and that was enough to activate it. Now it has to be starting characters, and to be honest, I think most people always played it that way. Because, what if your black cat didn't die right away? Or, black cat's kind of a weird example because that's very likely to die. But you get my point, right? What if we didn't trigger that effect? What if it doesn't get attacked? And then, you need those stats in order to be good. This is just going to make things a lot more easy for newer players, much more transparent, and it's going to make things make a lot more sense. So this will still be a very strong hero. I don't think it's really much of a nerf, though it clearly is, but I don't think it's going to have like a massive impact or swing how you're going to want to play Fallen Angel or really think of it as a pick choice. So this is still a very good hero, and I'm happy for the clarity, and I'm blanking on what the right word here is, but you get my point. I'm happy that this card makes more sense. Moving on, Ring of Rage now gives all your characters +3 attack instead of just your front row characters. This is a great change. I can't complain enough about the level 4 treasures, although I need to stop now because they're getting a lot of love. But yeah, no, this is a great change. It always felt a little weak. It was fine because it was just a purely good positive effect that it would have. You'd pick it every so often. Now you're a little more eager to. And considering how often your backline has ranged units in it, I think this might be better than it looks at face value. Your Sporkos, your Lady of the Lakes, things like that will really use the 3 attack very, very well. So I really enjoy, getting this change and getting the extra stats from Ring of Rage. I like this change a lot. Tack Ancient is the same card, but it's moved to level 4. This is a counter card, so this is something you do when your opponent has Doom Breath or is a spell-based deck, and maybe they've got monster books and they're using spells to clear your backline, or if just there's some really important backline minion that you can't have die, you would pick up a Soul Tack and play it. Now, though, it might see a little more use than that. At level 4, maybe you buy it and let your Darkwood Creeper pump it up. Maybe you've got it's a little bit of a non-bow with Ring of Meteors, but maybe you've got the Heartwood Elder and you can throw this in front of it, and I think it got more than enough toughness, and you only need to, I think, hit a couple of buffs to the attack in order to make it very viable in combat. So I like this change a lot. It'll still work, obviously, just as good as a counterpiece, but now maybe you're able to find ways to make it work and find ways to make it a viable inclusion to your team. So this is, I think, a pretty good change. Ride of the Valkyries gives +3 attack this brawl to all your characters instead of +2. It's never going to be a favorite pick of mine, but it's one that I probably should buy more often than I do. How good Ring of Rage I think is going to feel now. This is a 1-turn Ring of Rage, and I think there's definitely value in that for 2 gold. I probably should buy it more often, and maybe I'll look to do that now that it's a little bit incentivized to do so. Next up, we've got another change that's more of, I I don't know, not really much of a change. Basically, what's happening here is Morgan will now trigger when you hit 20 HP or when you hit 5 HP, so it's 5 or less instead of below 20 or below 5. It really feels like it should work that way. It's always felt like it should work that way, and now it does. All right, next up we've got Fairy Godmother. It gets +1/+1, and now instead of giving your good characters +3 health, whenever a good character dies, it gives them +2 health. Was a phenomenal card in the mid game, and really meta defining at times, and lobby defining more often. So I think a little bit of a nerf here is good. I like that it still is going to feel like the same card. It's still going to be very similar. And I think it's very significant that it's getting more attack on itself. That was something you were always trying to do, is find ways to pump its attack to make it more viable and make it more oppressive. So, there is a bit of give and take with this one, but obviously +2 health to all your other good characters whenever anything dies is, even though it's only one less, it's going to make a pretty significant difference. So still a very good card. Still fills its same purpose, but a little less oppressive. So this is, in my opinion, a great change here. They cut Wild Growth was simply not being picked enough at level 4. Was there any idiot in any village that was picking this at level 4? I was very critical of this change when they moved it to 4. They just shoved it in there. It was terrible at 2, so why would sending it to 4 be good? Put it back in 2. Give it back. Walk the change back. Give us the fun, niche, not actually good strategy that if you pulled it off, just because it had a good win rate when pulled off, I don't need to go down this diatribe again. Put it back at 2. It was cool. It was fun. Put it back. Moving on, Snow Angel. I actually don't even remember what this change is. For every 3 good characters you buy, get a random good character. Is the old version. Now for every 3 good characters you buy, get a random good character with +1/+1. Strictly better. Not going to make this a good card. Yeah, I really don't have. I can't imagine this really makes a massive shift or a massive impact on whether or not Snow Angel's good. But if you like Snow Angel, it got a little bit better, and I have no issues with that. So all things considered, that's fine, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Next up, who knows why we're doing this? I really don't. I don't think Good Boy cares what its initial stats are. I said it when they made it a 3/3. You can make this a 1/1. It doesn't matter. That's not why it's good. That's not why it's bad. It's now going to, I think, be pretty poor because of the Magic Sword being in 7. So this is, to me, overcompensating. It's completely removing it from viability. You're going to absolutely have to pump it with spells now, so you almost need to buy it and wait a little bit. They said this should put him in line with other level 6s. I think it puts him, I don't know, maybe behind the 8 ball, right? Because it's just, there's one treasure now that really works with it. I don't know, does spike count? Not to me. I don't know. I'm probably not trying to build Good Boy strategies really at all anymore. I think this kills it. And again, I'm fine with that. I think it's been so prevalent and so important to the game for so long that it'll be fun and refreshing to lose it. But again, it just feels like it could have been brought down a peg very easily by making Magic Sword give +75, +70, or +69, as my Discord always like to say, and let's be honest, that's probably the right thing to do with it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm glad we get to play for a while without Good Boy Magic Sword being dominant, but I don't know. It just, I don't quite see eye to eye with how they've gone about handling this interaction. But I've gone on ad nauseum about that, so we'll digress. Next up, Sad Dracula. I was said it when they announced the change. I was terrified. I was nervous. They took my favorite character, and what were they going to turn him into? And the answer was a non-interactive, cheesy pile of frustration. They ruined him, absolutely ruined him. I'm like distraught about what they did to Sad Dracula, who was again my favorite hero, and now I will not pick because I'm not doing that cheesy. Everything else on my board is 0 attack except for the one Shadow Assassin that I put in position 1, and that grows big. Listen, that's fine in ladder. Ladder's about competing. It's about trying to win. I have no issues with anybody playing that strategy on ladder. I'm not going to do it, right? I don't think it can miss. I don't know. It's just, to me, they gutted him. And I didn't see it coming either, right? Like I played a couple games with it. I was like, oh no, this is still interesting. And then it started to get around that there was this cheese strategy that was the only acceptable way to play the hero now. And it broke my heart a little bit. So I'm not going to keep talking about it. I'll go too far. I'll say too much. Please fix it. Like, oh my goodness, this was brutal. They assassinated my boy. Now I'm sad that he's sad. But yeah, that was rough. Apparently Shrivel was not correctly reducing the health of damaged characters. Apparently, yeah, I hadn't noticed the issue yet, but there's been a few of these bugs. It's curious to me they're listing it under like card changes. This is just a bug fix. It Was All a Dream was apparently preserving that hero order where slot 1 was a free hero, and that's no longer going to be the case. They're all going to be random, and it says you still won't be able to pick a hero that somebody else has. That's good. Obviously, can't have that. So that actually wraps up the patch notes here. We've just got some bug fixes as well. Summoning Portal now works with Mordred's Summon. That's more of a card change than Shrivel. But I guess that was so common, and I just should have noticed it. That they wanted to really highlight it. So I can definitely respect that. But yeah, that does wrap up this video. Thank you all so much for your support. Again, a lot of changes in this one. We're over 40 minutes in this video, which is kind of crazy. And I think the longest one we'll put out on this channel to date. The game feels very, very different. Regardless of your thoughts on individual changes, buffs, nerfs, etc. There's a couple obviously I didn't like. You just shelve them all for now. Don't, whatever your preconceived notions are, so much has changed that I think we really need to try to go into this fresh. I gave my take because otherwise what am I doing here other than just reading something you could have read? But I'm really not panicking or worried. The game feels very different, and that's very fun at a bare minimum. And I haven't so far noticed anything that is like really, really oppressive balance wise. So just enjoy this for what it is, a major shakeup that is going to, I think, breathe some new life into the ladder grind for some of us and those of us that are on it. So I know I'm looking forward to getting in and trying to play a little bit more over the next couple of weeks with all these changes. So I'll be streaming. I'm streaming today, but it'll be yesterday by the time you guys get this video. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, it'll probably not be until Saturday that I'm able to stream, but I will tonight on Wednesday night of this video if I'm able to. It's about 50-50 at the moment now that I think about it. I'll try and get on for at least a couple hours and hopefully enjoy some of the new patch with you guys and gals. Thank you all so much. Please do like, comment, and subscribe on this video if you haven't already. Again, we're creeping ever closer to the 1,000 subscribers. You've helped me unlock the ability to make community posts, which is great. It lets me do things like update you, and I will be missing a day, which I did yesterday, and also put out polls and things like that. And I just really enjoy opportunities to communicate with my viewers, and that really has helped a lot over the last couple of days. So a great benefit, and there's plenty more at 1K. So if you don't subscribe, please do. You can check me out on Twitch. All the links are on the YouTube channel here. Join the Discord with the link down below in the description. And until next time, Brawlers, I'll see you in my lobbies.